30 years.
Yes,
We've been,
yes.
and you've been right here, and we've been through all of these various topics together. Everything
That's
from
right.
James Earl Ray, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, and just about every
King
topic.
and Malcolm
X, and
Yeah.
about anything that you can mention dealing with the American experience.
That's
and I
right,
want to
that's
thank
right.
you for that.
Thank
but
you so
before
much.
we do that, Dr. Baldwin, let's have you to give our audience some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences during this first 6 minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about the Confederate flag after we come back
Okay.
during the second segment.
Well, I grew up in a little town called Camden, Alabama, the Black Belt, Wilcox County, Alabama, in the 1940s, 50s, 60s. And during that particular time, I was exposed very much to Jim Crow and the Confederate flag as a symbol. I graduated from high school in Camden in 1967. At that point, I went to Talladega College, matriculated at Talladega College, graduating with a BA in history in 1971. From there, I went to Crozer Theological Seminary and Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, where I received a PhD in 1980 in American church history. And since that time, I've been teaching, and I've also been involved on some levels in social activism.
Mm-hmm. And so you bring with you this morning a lot of information in reference to the whole, as you indicated, the racial climate, changing the racial climate in the South, this whole racial climate and the impact that it had upon you personally, as well as how the Confederate flag played in that. Let's start off doing this first part of the show to talk about the flag itself. What about the Confederate flag?
Well, in order to understand the Confederate flag, I think you have to go back to its origins in 1861. There were actually 3 versions of the Confederate flag. One called the Stars and Bars, which was used by the Confederate States from March 1861 up to May 1863. In May 1863, a second flag was adopted, the Stainless Banner, it was called, really to symbolize white racial purity. And that flag was in existence from May 1863 up to March 1865. At that point, a third flag was of course adopted, called the Bloodstained Banner, to symbolize the sacrifice that was being made by Southern troops in the Civil War. And we know that the Confederate flag was intimately connected to the beginnings of the Civil War and also to the Southern dependence on slave labor, economic dependence on slave labor. So I think we have to understand the Confederate flag in those terms. But interestingly enough, when Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant, General Grant, at Appomattox in April 1865, Lee felt then that the effort to create a separate political nation or a confederacy on the part of the South was a lost cause. And he didn't think at that point that the Confederate flag had any meaning or significance, so it should not have been used, according to him, beyond the surrender at Appomattox.
And so the Confederate flag was dead as far as he was concerned, just a part of the failed effort in order to create a confederacy. And so the flag had no significance
whatsoever, because the Confederacy was all about the effort to create a separate political nation from the United States. Okay? It symbolized states' rights. It symbolized secessionism, seceding from the Union. It symbolized white supremacy, the myth of black inferiority. Robert E. Lee didn't want anything to do with that flag after he surrendered. But we know that in the 1890s, with the rise of groups like the Sons of the Confederacy and the United Daughters of the Confederacy, these groups adopted that flag as a part of their official logo.
Okay, and so Dr. Baldwin, what we'll do, we'll take this first commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up at that particular part and talk about this flag further. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.